Bloomington plans to call the tow truck on repeat parking violators downtown.
We do not believe that there's going to be an issue with somebody coming down there and parking and just finding their vehicle towed.
That's coming up on WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. Good afternoon, I'm Lauren Warnicki. Also on today's show, as early voting begins, an elections officer says, don't wait till Election Day.
There's going to be lines no matter where you go, especially in this election.
And a downtown bar inspires a new art book of Bloomington-Normal landmarks.
It was festive and it was decorated, and I was like, what is this place? Like, this is beautiful. And then the more I looked, the more beauty I found.
All that coming up after a Bloomington-Normal news update. This is Sound Ideas on 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.
Support for WGLT comes from Bloomington-Normal Audiology. Hear My Story continues with local patient David Fedor.
Probably my favorite feature is Bluetoothing my phone through them so that I can have a phone conversation. And the clarity that I'm getting is tremendous. So the technology is amazing.
David's full story can be found at bnaudiology.com.
From the campus of Illinois State University in Normal, this is WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. I'm Lauren Warnicki. The Bloomington City Council this week approved a change to the city policy of towing vehicles after 5 parking violations in the downtown. Council member and mayoral candidate Cody Hendricks says he worries about someone coming downtown once, not knowing about the change, and getting towed. In this interview with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker, following a public appearance, City Manager Jeff Juergens addresses that concern.
We already have in our city code that a vehicle can be towed after 5 tickets. The change that was made on Monday night was to add an additional way that service can be perfected, which is by certified mail. We do not believe that there's going to be an issue with somebody coming down there and parking and just finding their vehicle towed. Now, the exception to that's going to be if somebody's got a lot of tickets, if they're one of these individuals that we're going to be focusing on early on that's got more than $1,000 in parking debt, then yes, they're potentially going to be at risk for being towed, but only after they receive notice. No one is going to just have their vehicle towed. There's a notice provision, the requirement. They're going to have an opportunity to dispute it with the city. So residents and those coming to the city should not be worried that their vehicles are just going to be towed off the street.
So where should you draw the line, and how should the line be drawn about scofflaws? You've laid out a noticing process, but does it remain at 5? Does it mean the top 40? What?
So right now we're going to focus on those that have the highest number of tickets and the most debt with the city. So we'll focus on that first. It's going to take us a while to address that and to approach those individuals. Then we'll start to ramp up the program a little bit more once we get through that process. What the message we're trying to send is we want you to pay your tickets. If you have a lot of tickets that are outstanding, contact us. We'll work on a program to get those paid and so that we can get your debt cleared.
The council seems to have left it up to staff to come up with this framework. Are there other elements you haven't mentioned yet to that framework?
The staff will be focusing on the initial citation amount and any costs that we've got in terms of collecting that we might have to pay. So, we're going to be looking at trying to provide some discounts and trying to make this reasonable. We're looking at payment plans, different things like that. We want to be as reasonable as we can in this endeavor, and so that's going to be our goal.
Once you flesh out that framework and that process, does it come back to the council for a vote, or do they get to avoid a potentially unpleasant vote?
No, this is all within the staff's discretion at this point. We'll certainly keep the council apprised of it, and we'll make sure that that plan is clear to the parties involved.
Do you have a hope for end date on when the plan will be released?
Not right now. Staff needs to meet and focus in on this and make some final decisions. Hopefully within the next few weeks it'll be ready.
Regardless of the merits or the kind of case of the scofflaw, does such a policy send an unwelcoming message to potential downtown users? Does it create an adverse perception?
It really shouldn't. There are parking restrictions in about every community you go to. So this is, we're not unique or abnormal in having parking restrictions, time limits on how long you can park in places, and parking tickets. This is not something the city invented, So this is something that a lot of communities have and a lot of communities face. But again, we want to be realistic, and we want to work with people so that we're not just towing your car, and we're keeping the debt in check and providing options to people.
The City Council will soon discuss the proposal to grant historic landmark status for Holy Trinity Church. In public comments, Monsignor Jason Gray of the Catholic Diocese of Peoria noted at a council meeting that the designation tells him that the city is saying to the property owner, we don't trust you to manage your own property. Would you respond to that comment, that perception?
So this is part of our Historic Preservation Commission and part of the code that we have in place. This will be something that the commission obviously recommended approval of this. This is something that the City Council will have to, that they're currently wrestling with, and they'll have to make a decision on. Really, I don't think it's probably appropriate for me to comment one way or another. They've held public hearings on this, and the council will make a determination in the near future.
The follow-on comment from Monsignor Gray is that he thinks it puts the Diocese of Peoria and the City of Bloomington in an adversarial position, and I would not recommend that, unquote. Is that a threat?
No, I think anytime that, this isn't the first time that we've had property owners go through a situation like this. And so I think it's really just working through the process. And again, the council is going to have to take a look at the public hearing and the testimony at the public hearing, and they'll have to make a decision on this.
That's Bloomington City Manager Jeff Juergens. He spoke with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker. Tomorrow on Sound Ideas, hear about efforts folks in the Bloomington-Normal community have undertaken to help some of the world's most impoverished people on the other side of the globe. That'll be on tomorrow's show. Next up on Sound Ideas, a collaboration between two Bloomington-Normal nonprofits to help two populations in need. Here's WGLT's Melissa Ellen.
The Immigration Project and Home Sweet Home Ministries Shelter are planning to use around $700,000 to help recent arrivals and the unhoused in Bloomington-Normal. The funds are from a grant the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus recently awarded the Immigration Project. Executive Director Charlotte Alvarez says the Immigration Project will use 51% of the money to support its existing legal and social services programs for new arrivals.
This is really just us recognizing that there's already a need for support for the folks who are already here, and then being able to provide that wraparound support.
The rest of the funds will go to Home Sweet Home Ministries Shelter in Bloomington. CEO Matt Burgess says he hopes the money can be spent on staffing for a non-congregate shelter space.
Obviously, we want to try and protect that new revenue to do the new work.
But the non-congregate shelter isn't yet up and running. Burgess says an area housing coalition is still securing a building and a more permanent funding stream.
We can't rely on entirely external funding sources to solve our community's issues. We need to be willing to commit community resources.
If the non-congregate shelter isn't operational by the end of June, Burgess says Home Sweet Home will spend the grant on existing programs. That's because the funds expire. I'm Melissa Ellen.
It's Sound Ideas on WGLT and WGLT.org. I'm Lauren Warnicki. Early voting sites across Illinois opened today as voters begin casting their ballots for the November general election. Election officials are encouraging voters to take advantage of that option, as well as mail-in voting if you want to avoid the risk of a long line on Election Day. McLean County Clerk Kathy Michael predicts voter turnout could hit 80% in this election. Kathy Michael and Katie Strepek, who's the director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Illinois State University, both spoke with student reporter Mia Saraz. This is for an upcoming episode of the Democracy's Future podcast, a joint effort between WGLT and the Vidette. They all discuss how they are preparing for the election, including the possibility of long lines, such as the ones students experienced at the Bone Center during the last non-COVID presidential election in 2016. Here's County Clerk Kathy Michael.
And that's right when same-day registration kicked in as well. which really caused long lines, and people were very patient and got through those okay. Since then, I think things have gone well. There's going to be lines no matter where you go, especially in this election. March, I think we had one of the lowest turnouts that we've ever seen, so no long lines there. But be ready for long lines, and that's why if you feel comfortable, early vote or vote by mail. Other than that, we have enough judges this time. It's amazing the response of the judges that we have. In fact, normally at ISU we'll have between 20 and 30 with the group that works with them specifically. Each election they requested 40, and we've got at least 40. And we have more equipment. Each election we've asked, do you need more equipment? And when affordable, which it usually is with grants, we'll try to send more equipment out there to help avoid the lines as well.
And Katie?
So I will just, add to that we appreciate the work of the clerk's office to really help those same-day voters, because that is a good chance for our students. And at the same time, like Kathy said, we really encourage students to register in advance. And we have had multiple voter registration tables already on campus, and we will continue with that. And we're glad to have our voter engagement interns help go to any student group or event and help get students registered, because that really does help save time. And then also, if people are able to research their individual ballot in advance, then they don't spend as much time perhaps when they are voting, because they already know who they're going to vote for. And so that's helpful too. And just all of the options that we have, with early voting, vote by mail, as much as we can educate students about that options. I agree with Kathy, there may still be long lines because that tends to happen during a presidential election, especially during a highly contested one. But we think democracy works best when everyone can participate. And so we're just trying to give as many ways to make the vote accessible as possible.
What are the most common misconceptions people have about voting?
Well, here lately, and I'm sure you've all read about it, more lately than ever that I've seen, is the mistrust of the voting process, the possibilities of fraud. We fortunately quell those pretty quickly. And how do we do that? Because we've never had any fraud or suppression or any record thereof. And as I say, often we aim to keep it that way. We encourage poll watchers. Poll watchers are good to have. They keep an eye on us. Whether we think that we're the most honest people in the world, it's good to keep an eye on them. Trust but verify. And we're very proud of our reputation here, but that's been the main thing. And this time there's going to be misinformation and disinformation. We have social media monitors to try to quell anything, because those folks are going to try to scare you from voting. And we want to really try to, by working with the media and all the organizations, to stop that. Don't be afraid to vote.
I think sometimes people also have the perception that their vote doesn't make a difference, but we know that is absolutely not true. I mean, there are many elections that have been decided by just a few votes. Some of our local elections have been decided by a few votes. And when I talk to students, I always say there are over 20,000 of you. Imagine if all of you who are eligible to vote voted. You would absolutely change things in our community. And students have always been at the forefront of civil rights movements and a lot of really important social movements in our country. And so I just like to remind people of that and really get them excited about voting.
Just going back to you, Kathy, are you concerned about the threat of hostility from voters on Election Day, and how would you train a poll worker for that?
Well, we have, we're concerned. We're always concerned every election of what might happen. Of course, there's a lot more of that out there this time. I think the turnout of people who have signed up to be election judges, they feel safe and confident in our local law enforcement. We have plans in place that, for obvious reasons, I won't detail, but our judges are trained specifically on how to handle certain situations, what phone numbers to call. We've met with all of our local and rural law enforcement to just be on the ready, what numbers to call, and things like that. So we're ready for anything, but always on guard and concerned.
And then I just have one more question. Some election offices reported a big boost in voter registration after Taylor Swift made her presidential endorsement. Did McLean County notice any increase then?
Huge. but I can't tell you that that's Taylor Swift. But now that you've made that correlation, it is rather interesting that we got the highest stack of applications that we've ever received, so people can say it was Taylor Swift or some other debate reason. But that's an interesting question, because it was a huge increase a few days following that. I saw this stack come in, and of course you can't get the visual here on the radio, but let's just say it was a foot tall, and that's the biggest one I've ever seen. In fact, we all kind of went, whoa, and so that'll be very interesting to see the turnout when we get the final numbers of Democratic versus Republican. This has always been a very strong Republican county that is moving. It is moving. We have a tie 10-10 on our county board, 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats. So that's very interesting too. What's the turnout going to be, Republican versus Democrat in McLean County? It could shift the entire county.
McLean County Clerk Kathy Michael says the county clerk's elections website now includes sample ballots specific for each precinct in the county, except for the city of Bloomington. Those ballots are handled by the Bloomington Election Commission. Early voting is available at Eastland Mall and the McLean County Government Center in Bloomington. Michael and Katie Strepek from ISU's Center for Civic Engagement spoke with student reporter Mia Saraz for the Democracy's Future podcast. You can subscribe to Democracy's Future on the NPR app or wherever you listen. Stories and conversations from Bloomington-Normal, it's Sound Ideas. I'm Lauren Warnicki. Bloomington artist Eileen Backman makes paintings of local businesses and landmarks around Bloomington-Normal. The co-owner of Main Gallery 404 has been working on turning about 30 of those paintings into her first art book. Backman tells WGLT's Emily Bollinger why she decided to feature these landmarks in art form.
The book itself is, it's a little bit different than a normal coffee table book. There's not very many words, but the book is designed, so that you could keep it as a book if you wanted to, or you can, what I thought would be neat would be is if you could take out pages and frame, and for people who wanted to frame. And I thought it would be kind of an inexpensive way to get a lot of local prints. The book is designed so that you can take out pages. It allows you to be able to not have to pick and choose between paintings and take them out, and the book still, like if you take out a page, the book still works. Like you're not taking a page from something else. So in the book, it's about 30 paintings, and they will be size 8 by 10 or 2 5 by 7s on a page. So they should be standard size, so you can pull them out and then frame them if you wanted to.
Why do you paint local landmarks, local buildings, and why do you want to sell them to the Bloomington-Normal community?
This is, I think, what really got me on the beauty of downtown. Is I was just downtown, and I was across from the bistro, and I looked up, and I didn't even know what the bistro was. I had no idea it was a gay bar. I had no idea. But it was beautiful. Like, it was festive, and it was decorated, and I was like, what is this place? Like, this is beautiful. And then the more I looked, the more beauty I found. So part of it was just my wanting to capture that aesthetically in my paintings. But then what I noticed is when people bought them, it really had special meaning to them. Like, it was the daughter of Jan's daughter bought the bistro, and then she came to me and she wanted me to do another painting of the bistro, like a little bit bigger for her mom, and she told me stories. And that's kind of what happened. The more local places that I painted, the more stories I heard, the more the stories of their businesses, of their local art. I have one just recently, the one I did of the Coffee Hound. The woman who bought it is sending it to Australia for her daughter, because when her daughter comes to visit her in town, she loves to go to the Coffee Hound, and she just wanted, and so that was like sending a piece of her mom to her daughter. So just so many great stories that I've heard. I painted Elroy's not too long ago with the old awning that I loved, the red and green one. The person who bought it had their wedding reception there. They're like, we had a wedding reception here. I want to buy it. And so then they told me the story of their wedding reception. So, there's so many of them that have happened that way. I'm trying to think of others, but that's generally how it happens is that word of mouth. The painting gets to the person that's it's supposed to go home with. And so I kind of like that. I kind of like leave it up to fate. I paint it, I post it, and I see who does it end up with. And I realize how it's not just the buildings. Like, these places have special meaning to people here. It allows them to connect to that, but then allows me to connect to all these different people. Like, before I started painting, I didn't know anybody in town. Even though I lived here for 20 years, I hate to admit this, I don't even think I ever shopped downtown. But now it's like I see how vibrant the downtown community is, and my paintings are bringing that to other people, not even the business owners, but to the people who don't even know about these businesses in a way that they may not know otherwise. So my hope is that it really will open people's eyes to both the beauty and the amazing variety of small businesses that we have downtown. I do plan to do more books, and so I want to broaden that, do more in Normal and do some of the outside communities to just show people what's there.
What are some hardships or negatives of doing this, if any?
I think for me, the only negative is time. I still work full time. For my husband's an attorney, I'm his paralegal. We've been doing it for 20 years. And so I still work full time. I'm still co-owner of the gallery, which takes time. But other than that, it's nothing but joy. I mean, if I could, spend my whole day doing it, I would. Before I started painting, and I was not an established artist in the community. I was not an established artist at all. I just started painting again like 4 years ago. In the beginning, it took some confidence building, but now I feel very kind of sure of myself in this niche that I have of painting local art in watercolor and ink, and everyone seems to kind of like that, so I feel comfortable with it.
How would you say doing these paintings has made you a more established artist in the community?
It's not just being a more established artist. I think it's being a more involved community member. Like I said, we've lived here for 20-something years. My husband's a local attorney, so we've had the opportunity to be very involved. We're both rather introverted, so we're not. And since I started painting, in particular local places, I've met so many people and then become more interested in what they're doing. For me, it's a blessing to be able to use art as a way to serve the community. It feels really good to be able to contribute be a contributing member of the community. So not just as an artist, but as a person who listens to people's stories and hears people's stories, and then can do more than just donate time or money. I can donate something that has special meaning. The downtown business community is just really amazing and welcoming, and they help each other out, and there's just so many amazing people. And if this book can highlight that, then it makes it all worth it.
That was Bloomington artist Eileen Backman, who's working on her first art book. The book is available for pre-order next Monday. Check out WGLT.org for that pre-order link. In mid to late October, the book will be available to purchase at Main Gallery 404 in downtown Bloomington. Backman spoke with WGLT's Emily Bollinger. Thanks for choosing WGLT's Sound Ideas, made possible in part by Bloomington-Normal Audiology. I'm Lauren Warnicki. Story help today came from WGLT's Charlie Schlenker, Melissa Ellen, Emily Bollinger, and student reporter Mia Saraz. Bren McMonigal edits the show. You can find all our Sound Ideas interviews and stories at WGLT.org. This is 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.